Hey there, folks. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. Thanks a lot for joining us today on Doc Talk. We're going to have a great show. Our guest is Dr. Bob Larson, and he is the Coleman Chair and a professor at Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. We're going to talk about flies, cattle, getting rid of those pesky things. I'm glad that you joined us. Stick around. It's going to be a great show.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress, powered by Kansas farmers. This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine. Your stem cells, your health, your life.
Welcome to the show, Bob.
It's good to be here.
Folks, Dr. Bob Larson, and Dr. Larson is the Coleman Chair, and he is a professor in clinical sciences here in the Department of Clinical Sciences at Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. And Bob has spent a lot of time not only in raising cattle, in practice with cattle, and then extension and now research with cattle. So
Yep.
got a lot of experience and got a chance to move back home and continue
right.
on your career here at Kansas State.
That's exactly right. We've got a good group here, and it's fun to come to work every day.
Yep, we sure do, and we're very lucky. And so we're going to talk about flies, and there's lots of different types of flies and different things that they cause, but let's just kind of jump right in.
That's exactly. When you think of summertime, maybe you think about other more pleasant things, but you also think about flies.
Yeah.
It's the time of year when we deal with flies, and there are a number of different types of flies. And the reason that's important is, their populations might peak at slightly different times of the summer. They cause different types of annoyance or problems for cattle, and we control them in different ways. So even though we typically think of flies as just one category of nuisance as flies, but there's actually several different types of flies that cattle producers are concerned about and work to minimize.
You bet. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of these different types of flies, and because to me, a fly is a fly. I'm gonna get after it, but there are some that leave you with a little more discomfort than others too.
That's right. There's a few really important fly species that we deal with in cattle. For cattle out grazing on grass, probably the biggest ones are the horn fly and face fly, and somewhat also the horse fly. And so we're going to target our control methods really on those particular fly species. When you move cattle into a dry lot or a feedlot situation, then you're talking about stable flies and house flies as a bigger problem. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but those flies have some differences. They have differences in the amount of time they spend on the cattle versus off the cattle, and differences in where they tend to lay their eggs and different parts of the life cycle that's going to impact how we try to control them.
Well, all those are going to be important when you start to think about management, products, and things that you're going to implement, because if they don't spend much time on the cattle and that, you probably don't want to spend a lot of time controlling them there.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So understanding their life cycle and understanding where they like to be is important.
Yes, it is. And, and it also impacts other aspects of how they damage or how they cause problems for cattle. Some of the problems we see with flies are just the annoyance. Some of them are blood suckers, so they're going to have a painful bite. They're going to suck blood. They're going to decrease growth performance. They're going to change the behavior of cattle. They'll drive the cattle to the shade or bunching up or getting in water to get away from the flies. All of those are problems both with animal welfare, animal health, and productivity. Another thing that we think about with flies too that comes up is how this affects our neighbors. Our neighbors,
Absolutely.
Other cattlemen, our neighbors that don't raise cattle. One of the reasons we try to control flies is not only for the health and comfort of the cattle, but I don't really want to get phone calls from neighbors that are angry because there's a lot of flies on their property that came from my property.
Absolutely.
And so those are all reasons that we try to attack these dang things all summer long. We worry about flies, and they take some effort to control.
Cool. We're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to get into talking about some flies on grazing cattle and how to control and prevent that. You're watching Doc Talk, and we're sure glad you joined us.
I'm Dr. Frank Lyons, a physician here at Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. As one of the only standalone stem cell centers in the U.S., we use your stem cells as therapy for arthritis and some autoimmune diseases.
I'm Dr. Andrew Pope. Here at Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center, utilizing the latest technology under strict protocols, we're able to harvest your stem cells from your own fat to treat a variety of medical conditions. The best part about it is, it's a same-day surgical procedure and requires no general anesthesia.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Doc Talk, brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook, or visit us online at sftmeats.com.
Folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with my friend and guest, Dr. Bob Larson. And Dr. Larson is a world-renowned bovine practitioner and clinician professor here at Kansas State University, and we're tickled to death to have you on the show and have you sharing some of this with us. When we're talking about flies, one of the we're going to get into the grazing cattle, but when I was in practice, we had this terrible outbreak of flies next to one of my clients' feeding facilities.
Yeah.
Well, the field next to us was a cucumber patch that they were raising cucumbers for Vlasic pickles or somebody's pickles.
Right.
And the cucumbers got too big, and so they wouldn't fit in the jar or something to that nature. So they put them all in a pit for a slurry.
And here came the flies.
We got flies like you couldn't believe. But it's like what we were talking about when you left about the neighbor and some of those things. And sorry, maybe it wasn't Vlasic. I don't know the brand name of the pickle. Don't write the pickle company. But anyway, it's things we don't think about.
That's exactly right. Flies are, they're very adaptable, and they will find ways to be annoying.
Dirty boogers. All right,
Yeah.
So let's talk about flies on grazing cattle.
Yeah.
And some of the things that we have there.
Yeah, the two biggest flies that we really are worried about with grazing cattle are horn flies and face flies. And they're actually fairly different in that the horn fly is a biting fly. It's blood meals, and it mostly lives on the back and shoulders of cattle, and sometimes up on their poll. They're called horn flies, but they don't spend that much time up on
not on the horns.
Not really on the horns, but the back and the sides. They have a piercing mouth part, so they're going to take blood meals, and that's annoying to the cattle. We see decreased in weight gain performance, decrease in milk production. The stable fly has also been associated with passing mastitis in beef cattle, and so it has a number of problems. It spends almost all of its time on cattle, so most of our control methods are focused on the fact that we can treat the cattle and have an impact on the fly.
Yeah, these are the ones that when you see the cow, shake or shiver, and the cloud comes off the cow, and it's boy, I tell you what, and they just constant tail swishing and things to that nature.
Yeah, they're a problem. Now, the face fly is the other fly that we really worry about a lot with grazing cattle. It's different. It's a bigger fly if you want to look at them closely or side by side than a horn fly, and they spend most of their time around the face of the cattle. They don't have a piercing mouth part. They suck on the fluids that come out of the eyes and nose and things like that. One of the biggest problems with face flies is they'll cause enough damage around that eye or in that eye, and they move from animal to animal so that they can spread the organisms that cause pink eye in cattle. And that really its biggest effect is the fact that it's spreading the disease pink eye. The flies by themselves are not that annoying to the cattle. They don't really spend that much time on the cattle. They spend most of their time off of the cattle in vegetation, decaying vegetation, things like that, and away from the cattle, and only come back and occasionally feed. And that, again, impacts the way we're able to attack these animals, or these flies. And again, the real problem is the fact that it's associated with spreading pink eye.
Great. We're going to take a break. When we come back from the break, we're going to get into the differences between some of the grazing cattle and the dry lot cattle and some of the things you think about with flies. Thanks, Bob, for being here today, and thank you for watching More About Flies with Dr. Bob Larson after the break.
Earlier in my life, I rode bucking horses in rodeos, and my shoulders took such a beating, and that was probably the reason for having several previous surgeries on both shoulders. About a year ago, I decided that I didn't want to have another surgery, and so I contacted Kansas Regenerative Medicine, took their treatment process. It was relatively pain-free. Now, after 8 months, my shoulders have healed to the point where I think I'm probably 90 to 95% of normal. It takes a couple of months to start to see results with stem cell injections, but at about 3 to 3.5 months, I started to feel better. I started to have less pain and feel real progress. That continued to increase gradually until now at approximately 8 months. And I'm extremely pleased. I've got full range of motion. I can lift weights, I can throw, I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do without a lot of pain previously.
As fourth-generation farmers themselves, Heinen Brothers Ag Service understands the risk and rewards of farming. So when it comes to quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia, call Heinen Brothers Ag today, 800-760-4964.
Broadband has become as important to us as highways. That is why Doc Talk is teaming up with NTCA, the Rural Broadband Association, and rural broadband companies like Blue Valley Telecommunications in fighting for quality broadband access through the program Smart Rural Communities.
I don't think we have any idea what's coming in the future. I couldn't have imagined 5 years ago what we're doing today. So in 2 years, I would guess there's things we can't imagine that we're going to be doing.
To learn more, visit ntca.org/smart or bluevalley.net.
No matter where, no matter why, the Veterinary Health Center at Kansas State University is committed to providing quality patient care to animals and exceptional customer service to their owners. From routine checkups to emergency and specialty care, our world-renowned specialists and experienced professionals are here to discover, to teach, and to heal.
Let us know.
How can I help?
How can we help?
Here's another gardening tip with Annette Jackson from Jackson's Greenhouse.
Well-designed container flower gardens bring beauty to your home, at your entry, on your patio, or placed in a special spot in your landscape. Let Jackson's help you select the correct plant combinations which will add the color and style you need and that will survive the summer to provide beauty till frost.
Our annual flat sale is going on now. Choose a flat of 4 packs for just $18.99.
Jackson's Greenhouse has what you need today.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Doc Talk, brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Bob Larson. Dr. Larson is the Coleman Chair and Professor in the Department of Clinical Sciences here at the Veterinary School at Kansas State University. And talking about flies, talked about the face flies and the horn flies out on the grazing cattle. Now we're going to move into dry lots. So we bring cattle in dry lots, feedlot situations, stocker operations. What is the difference that we're going to see as far as species?
Well, when we move to a dry lot situation, feedlots, we tend to see primarily stable flies and house flies. One of the reasons that's a little bit different or important to think about compared to grazing cattle, horn flies, there you go. Horn flies and face flies both like to lay their eggs in basically fresh manure pats. Okay. The flies that we see in a dry lot situation, they actually prefer to lay their eggs in decaying vegetation, and particularly if it's mixed with a little bit of manure. So feed, manure, wet, moist feed areas are the places where the the flies that we see in dry lot situations laying their eggs. Therefore, when we think about control, we really do focus a lot on not just manure, but other places where the animals will, or the flies will lay their eggs, primarily spilled feed, spoiled feed. So things like sanitation becomes really important, just keeping things as cleaned up, picked up as possible to try to keep the places where those flies can lay eggs down to a minimum.
Yeah, and you start to think about, we got to feed hay to calves when we're starting them, but when you get it out in the alleyway and you don't get that clean, your feed alleys cleaned up, or old bale rings.
Old bale rings, silage pits, feed piles, the edges right under the bunks where feed kind of accumulates. Those are all great areas for the flies to accumulate, and so they're areas that we really target to keep cleaned up and minimized to avoid fly problems.
You bet. So in the dry lot situation, I think that we always think of more of the issues with flies being more outside of dry lots, but it can be a pretty big deal inside. And so the house flies also are known for transmitting some diseases potentially, correct?
Yeah, there's just if you think about where flies move, from animal to animal, from manure to animals and those kinds of things, there's a number of different diseases that they can move around in a cattle operation that we're just trying to suppress as much as possible.
And the other thing is, as we went back to the neighbor deal, you don't want to be out there eating your piece of watermelon this summer.
No, I don't.
And have the flies keep coming. And the other thing is that we have seen that the flies will transmit the E. coli 157.
Yeah, there's a number of things. So we really do want to try to keep those populations down as low as possible. In that feedlot environment, the actual middle of the pen, where it's packed down pretty good, that's not where the flies are going to lay eggs and live. Huh. It's going to be along the edges, along the fence rows. It's going to be around the water tanks, particularly if it gets kind of wet and moist there, and just off the yard. As you divert rainwater and off-flow into lagoon pens and things like that, those are areas where the flies can develop as well.
Yep.
So when you think about a dry lot, you think a lot about sanitation, just trying to get rid of any of those places where the flies like to lay eggs.
Keep the weeds mowed down, folks.
That's right.
All right, well, when we come back, we're going to close up our show on flies. We've been having a great time here with Dr. Bob Larson from Kansas State University, and we're going to have a little more after the break.
The BQA Tip of the Day, sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica, Inc.
Hello folks, this is Dr. Nels Lindberg with Animal Medical Center and Production Animal Consultation out of Great Bend, Kansas. Today's BQA Tip of the Day, we want to visit about fly control. Fly control is a very important aspect to any operation that's running cattle because, as we all know, flies can get very bad in the summer, especially late summer. We have different products and different things we can use to combat flies. Most importantly, we want to focus on it before the fly population is too high. We focus on it afterwards. We can be a little too late to the party. We want to use products that are effective around premises, along bunk lines, but also on these animals. We have to take care of the environment as well as the animals. There are some great products out there. There's some new products that are very long lasting. Products that can be washed off buildings, washed off cement, multiple times, last for several weeks. Again, there are some great new products out there. Check them out. Contact your local veterinarian. He can help you out and give you some answers for your fly control population problems.
Healthy cows start with the new Hired Hand automatic livestock sprayer. Rancher invented to provide an efficient alternative to pour-on and injectable parasite management systems. The portable design allows cattle to treat themselves head to hoof. Strategic device placement with pass-through activation technology takes the stress out of parasite treatment for cattle and the rancher. Get the new Hired Hand for yourself or become a distributor. Visit cowsprayer.com. The new Hired Hand makes healthy cows easy.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thompson here with Dr. Bob Larson, and we're looking at some new contraption here, the vet gun to flies.
I'd have to get to be a better shot to pick off those flies one by one with that, I think.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. Guns don't kill flies. I kill flies. But anyway, all kidding aside, we're going to talk about, how to control these flies and prevent the flies in the system. And let's start out with the dry lot.
Yeah, let's do. Now, remember, because the flies that we're most concerned about in a dry lot situation, they tend to lay their eggs where there's vegetative matter or vegetative matter mixed with manure. And so it's all about sanitation, cleaning up the feed areas, not letting it get wet around watering, waterers, troughs, those kinds of things. So it's really a lot about sanitation, keeping things cleaned up as much as possible. Because the fly doesn't spend much time on the cattle, we don't typically talk about spraying cattle in a dry lot situation. We might spray the premises. These same stable flies, they'll when they're not on the cattle, they'll be on fence rails, they'll be on surfaces around the area.
Weeds.
Yeah, they're just not on the cattle.
Right.
So spraying the weeds, spraying the facilities, and those kinds of things, we can do that as a premise spray, as well as there's use of parasitic wasps and other things that attack the little larvae in that stage.
Feed through products that wind up in the manure.
Yeah, there's several ways we attack them, but in a dry lot situation, it's going to start with sanitation.
Sanitation and trying to kill the pupa or the eggs. So
that's
exactly. Right. What about grazing cattle?
Well, in grazing, it's a little bit different. In that situation, the flies, both the horn fly and the face fly, likes to lay their eggs in the fresh fecal pats. Well, out on a big pasture, we're not going to really impact that very much. We're not going to go pick them up.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to spray 80 acres.
It is. And so it's really about using our chemical controls for these flies in a way that's timely and most effective to get it to the cattle. We've got several ways we can deliver the fly control chemicals to cattle. We can use ear tags.
Yep.
We can use back rubbers, dust bags, oilers, sprays. All of those are ways to deliver one of several different types of chemicals onto the cattle to control flies.
Guns.
Yeah.
We got
guns. That's right.
Solution with a trigger.
That's right. Exactly. So, we're trying to deliver the chemicals. Now, the one thing about the manure, I said that we couldn't do much about them. There are some feed-through insecticides that basically, in a mineral mix or otherwise, the cattle consume a product, an insect growth regulator, that then when it passed in the manure and the fly lays an egg there, it disrupts the ability of that egg and pupa larva to develop properly. And those work in some situations. The biggest problem with them is the cattle need to consume that consistently, and flies are moving between herds. If neighbors aren't using that same product, then you don't get the same level of control. So typically we don't talk about controlling the manure in a grazing situation, but there are some tools for that.
Well, you've been a great guest today, and as always, some great information for our producers and veterinarians.
Good. Well, hopefully everybody can enjoy the summer without a lot of fly problems.
Thanks. Hey, if you want to know more about what Dr. Larson and I do here at Kansas State University, you can find us on the web at www.vet.ksu.edu. Remember, always work with your local practitioner. I'm Dr. Dan Thompson. Thanks for joining us this morning on Doc Talk, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff Progress, powered by Kansas farmers.